Power to the people. I want to express myself on the subject of black and brown unity. Black and brown unity. I am first and foremost a humane being. Then I consider myself a Chicano de Aztlán. There are other self-identities, say, as a brown man. And in the context of race relations in the USA, it gets complex because the USA itself is the most complex country on the planet. We cannot just put everyone in one bag, like white, black, brown, yellow. Many Asian people do not really think of themselves as yellow. Many brown people do not think of themselves as brown. Same as many black people don't think of themselves as black. They may think of themselves, say with black people, as African Americans, Africans. So what I want to examine here is the whole concept of the need for unity between blacks and browns, to see that by nature, we should all be allies together in the common struggle for liberation and for eventual global revolution. Yet there's a big division between people based upon the concept of race, our racism. Many people hate to talk about racism, and that's idiotic. Racism exists in the USA, and it's become more subtle and disguised than earlier times. We don't see a black lynching as a common occurrence. And Mexicans in the USA were lynched shortly before World War II. Read North of Mexico by Carey. Anyway, there's demographics involved here. I have, over the years, I have tried not to get stuck on ethnic, racial, nationalist type approach to the struggle. I prefer looking at it as a humane struggle. I am first and foremost a humane being, meaning I have care, concern, and compassion for all humans, no matter what their so-called race. Now, intellectually, we know that there is really only one race of people on the planet Earth. That's the human race. So, even though we can know something intellectually, emotionally, psychologically, there's still stuff going on that doesn't really come to the surface of our conscious mind. We have been raised in a racist society, and many of us have been fooled into believing that the white race is a superior race. And intellectually, we could say, well, there is no superior race. The primary determinant of how we are is molded from the environment. Our early childhood, our environment we were growing up. You know, who our friends were. You know, who we interacted with on a daily basis. So the ideal here is to understand that the majority of people in the USA are white people. You know, almost 3/4. And the majority of the rest then are non-white. And the majority of those non-white are black and brown people. Understanding that these black, brown, white terms are real relative, so don't get stuck on it. It's the idea that we need to admit that racism is still a strong social force and power inside the United States. It keeps us divided against each other. I know for a fact that, say, many brown people are racist against blacks, and many blacks are racist against brown people. And then we have the whites racist against all non-whites. So it's a screwed up situation. It's FUBAR. So we need to really see that, looking at it logistically, if not militarily, logistically, if we have the majority white people and then we have a large portion who are non-white, the non-white people come together in unity, then hopefully this will help to pressure white people to get rid of their racism. At the same time as non-white people need to get rid of their racism. You know, racism comes in all colors, you know, so we can't be racist ourselves against white people and still talk about condemning racism. It's hypocrisy. You know, to think that, say, a black man cannot be racist is idiotic. I've suffered racism from about all races, even as a Chicano, or when I'm perceived as being Native American. You know, there's a kind of bias and discrimination that's real subtle here, and it's not necessarily racist. It's more cultural. You know, there's a cultural discrimination. You know, especially when my food is different from yours, or my language is different from yours. You know, so it's not as easy as just saying, well, you know, that person's racist or what. You know, racism gets real complex. And in the back of your mind, keep in mind that there is only one race of people on planet Earth. The human race. In order for us to evolve as a species and to avoid species extinction, we need to understand that there is only one race. And at the same time, not pretend to be colorblind, which is another stupid way of dealing with the race issue. So when I say race, you can look at it in terms of, you know, social race, because the term race itself, in terms of different kinds of people, is a social invention. Perhaps the first races were the Spaniards against the so-called Indians. You see, so many times the words and labels and definitions we have for each other, we need to really take a close look at that and really examine it, you know, in terms of whether that reflects connected reality. So I'm saying here that blacks and browns, because of the nature of their common oppression and the common discrimination they face from white people, should be natural allies. In the big picture, all of us should be natural allies against the forces of darkness, against the global empire. So we need to really look at connected reality as it is, not as we wish it was, but as it is now. And to see that if we need to continue to criticize white racism as the primary division among us as people, at the same time we need to criticize all forms of racism. No one is immune from the direct or indirect effects of racism in society. We need to love each other as humane beings. Strive to evolve beyond a racial category. If you're watching this now, you're a human being. Whether you're humane or not, with care, concern, compassion, is another question. But the logic, scientific reality is that if you're watching this, you're a human being. Evolving, hopefully, to become more and more of a humane being, where we can override the embedded racism in all of us, where we can just look at a person's character and how they treat us and how they treat others, and look at that. Look deeper than the surface. We need to look deeper than the surface. Look at the big picture. Here on Mother Earth, the majority of people on Earth are non-white. You can call that the third world, which to me is now an inaccurate term. The third world before was known as Asia, Latin America, Africa, and that's old now. There's really only one world. Common sense, logic, hello. So, at the same time that we want to evolve beyond our racism, we want to recognize that there are differences among us that are not just that are skin color, that are cultural, that are linguistic in terms of language, that are historical in terms of our experiences, and just see the beauty of the diversity of people. I love diversity. Remember, all this involves how you were raised. I was raised in a multi-racial, ethnic, cultural environment a lot. My neighbors were Chinese, so I got cool to Chinese culture. I'd go over there and eat, with their bowls and their spoon, and hearing the Chinese language, and it was cool. And on the other side were Italians, the Saninis. They were El and Nona. They were like my grandparents growing up. And then I used to play with Stevie, their grandson, and so I had that interaction, with that's just my neighbors. Then out in the street, were Chinese people, Japanese people, black people, and so I didn't have that cultural racism that many people are raised in inside the USA. So I just love diversity. God, I would hate it if it was all the same. You know? So we need to look at how we were raised and remember that we are here now. You know, I support the ideal of humane liberation. I'm an advocate of humane liberation. I support the Humane Liberation Party, just more virtual than actual. And I didn't want to get stuck into a color or an ethnic group or a nationality, because I know that we're living under a global empire. There are no independent nations under an empire, or you wouldn't be under an empire. You know, so we need to, you know, look at connected reality the way it is, not as we wish it would be, but the objective existence of a connected reality beyond our subjective perception. So there are no nations. And a true nation would have ownership and control of the land and all the institutions thereon. It would have its own army. It would have its own military forces to protect itself from invasion or foreign occupation. You know, so many so-called leftists, they're using analysis from like a century or so ago. Even the left-wing, right-wing bipolar idiocy is a reflection of that. You know, so we need to look at connected reality the way it is, not the way we wish it could be. So we still need to recognize that certain groups of people have more of an interest and a focus on certain issues than other ones. You know, we can look at now, say, with Chicanos, you know, talk about the immigration legislation that we need, you know, immigrant rights, you know, and remembering that Latinos are more than just about immigrant rights. We're about humane rights in general, you know. And so then look at black people, you know, now with the Zimmerman trial going on, you know, with Trayvon being killed, and the other kinds of killings that have happened, that killers basically getting away with killing. And where's the law and order there? Where's the U.S. Constitution there? You know, so we have to look at our general interests and see that there are particular interests unique to a certain racial ethnic grouping too. This is connected reality. This is complex. It's not black and white. You know, many white people think in terms of black and white. You know, white, black. And reality, you look around, it ain't all black and white. You know, so we need to have a cosmic consciousness, you know, of the big picture, a global consciousness, what's going on, you know, in the Middle East. You know, support the Palestinian people's right to exist in their own land. You know, what's going on in all over the world. You know, so at the same time, I know I need to look at, well, you know, I'm here in the USA. I'm not over there in the Middle East or another country. I'm here in the USA. So I think that we should logically look around us. You know, where are we? What's going on in your local community? What can you do to help make it better? To help create change? And see that we need to support each other's causes. Like say, I want to see more support from the black community of amnesty, for Mexican immigrants who are here in the USA. And at the same time, I want to see support from the brown community for black issues that are going on. Racism now, it's institutionalized, it's embedded into the very fabric of the whole power structure. This is embedded into it, into the whole psyche of the people. So we need to look deep at stuff and not just at the surface. And see that ultimately, we all share the same Mother Earth. We all have the same basic needs. And we all need to unite together as one people. I'll say this over and over again because people divide themselves into certain categories and classes and stuff. We're one people. We need to love one another, help one another, support one another. Even though my particular interests may differ from yours, still see that I can support your cause, but hey, you better support my cause too. This is ultimately the cause of humane liberation. And all the different approaches that we have to achieve that. Be it the situation in Egypt and supporting the Egyptian people in their efforts towards liberation. Be it the struggles going on in Turkey, Burma. Just be aware of the global news, and see that we all are one people, and we need to have natural allies. Our alliances should be based upon our common interests, and it should come natural to us. Shouldn't have to go through a bunch of propaganda program to get hip to it. And even examine that. Propaganda can be simply a series of ideals and ideals that are transmitted, to the masses. So propaganda can be positive or negative. So I hope that I've helped to clarify some issues here. This is just a brief glimpse at this extremely complex situation in an extremely complex world. At the same time, we need to simplify the complex, not complicate the simple. It's natural for us to want to have peace in our lives. It's natural for us to want to eat good food. It's natural for us to want to have shelter from the storm. It's natural for us to love one another in a true way. Politics remains war without bloodshed, and war remains politics with bloodshed. But in the center of all that are basic spiritual truths that we need to perceive and understand in order to evolve in our enlightenment upon Mother Earth. Thank you for your time and attention. Feel free to leave comments, hopefully constructive ones. And have a great life. Namaste.